Brain Trust. I am Chelsie Runnings, a realtor in Sonoma. I have my co-host, Mary Piasta, a local attorney, and Daren Blonski, a financial advisor here in Sonoma as well. And today we are here to talk about the most recent shutdowns that we're seeing in California and Sonoma, and to talk about real estate and the financial markets and bring you guys, of course, facts over fear. Mary, you want to jump right in and tell us what's going on with these shutdowns?
Thanks, Chelsie. Absolutely. So here in Sonoma County in California, we have a shutdown that was enforced. Basically, the higher risk businesses have been ordered to close operations. This is specific to indoor activities. So what we're seeing are these high risk businesses, and I can give you the list, modifying their operations, some of them. So this is the restaurants, the wineries, bars, clubs, distilleries, places where larger groups would convene. So theaters, family entertainment centers, museums, zoos, and card rooms. And what people can do is to continue to operate if they have limited outside service. So that's basically like outdoor dining and takeout options. We'll still be seeing that, as well as outdoor activities in wineries and tasting rooms. And that's a little bit different than what we've experienced before. So, you know, here we are again, the business community is pivoting to look and consider their options with this shutdown. Other centers that are required to shut down unless they can be modified to just do outside are other kind of large group type places. So fitness centers, worship services, protests is on the list now, and non-essential businesses. So that's smaller. And then unfortunately, I'm gonna have to wait longer to get my hair dyed because now the hair salons, you know, shut down again. So little issue, but big issue for me personally.
You know what I've noticed, Mary, is like kind of, at least around men now, like the look is now longer-ish hair. And I think it's just society like, yeah, we're just going to embrace this. This long hair thing's cool now, right? So maybe it's with women too, like dyeing hair. That's old news. You
know, we call this like beige or something, right, Chelsie, where you go dark to light.
Money for that. So I mean, you're saving yourself a ton of money.
Right?
And I'll just call it, my kids call it sparkle. They're like, wow, mommy, your sparkle's in your hair.
Not to mention the time in the chair, right? Like the amount of time you sit in the chair, that's brutal.
Oh, it's hours. But I think that's part of the concern, right, is COVID rates are increasing, which is why we have this, you know, difference in the orders. You know, they're looking at that close person-to-person interaction, and the, you know, the stylist in your hair, like, is pretty close. So I don't know.
Can you explain a little bit what non-essential is? Because I feel like that's kind of vague. Like, what is considered a non-essential business?
So in non-essential, there's a whole definition. It's based on the health orders. You have to go to your specific county. So people who, not to punt Chelsie, but like, really to do that, people should be looking at the county order and the definition there. And it's very specific. I mean, it's very detailed. So you look for your particular industry, and then, you know, you see how it's defined. And then, you know, that kind of trails into some other questions that people are asking about, well, what about all these new orders, and how are they going to be enforced, and will they be enforced? And in Sonoma, we've seen businesses basically defy these orders, whether they opened their businesses prematurely, or now some are looking at continuing to stay open despite these specific orders. And I think that these are part of the issue we're looking at here is, you know, how are the government officials going to look at that? You know, and then you have to balance that against the need for businesses to survive. So, you know, this is a challenging time for many businesses.
You know, because you think about it, right? And just, I spend my life looking at, you know, balance sheets and numbers and that kind of thing. And, you know, people had those emergency funds for the first round of shutdowns. Mm-hmm. Those are gone now. I mean, they're just done, right? So what is an organization to do right now that's getting shut down when they just have to face the reality of like revenue? I mean, I'm thinking about all our gyms in Sonoma. We got EAs, Valley Moon CrossFit, Sonoma Fit, Park Point, Curves, like all those institutions that have to get people in there and then have gone to extreme costs and measures to make it a safe place. And now they're like, sorry, I can't operate. I think it's somewhat unfortunate in some ways because I think there's a lot of people being impacted by this from a psychological level. And I think having gyms open, I think having those things, I haven't heard of any gyms having outbreaks in them. And I go to the gym. I'm a diehard gym guy. And I mean, I wash my hands like 5 times and wipe it down with every time I'm on a machine, I wipe it down. Then I wipe it down when I'm done with it. Like I'm like covered in bleach, whatever. And we're all masked up. I mean, it's hard to mask if your heart rate gets above 120, but other than that, you just drop it below your nose for a little bit. And so you think about this though. I mean, I don't know. I think what you're going to start seeing is some defiance now because it's like, well, if I shut down and listen, I might as well slip my neck. I'm done financially. I mean, sorry for the vivid imagery, but I mean, but that's it. Like, it's like, all right, we're done. Because there's no more, from what I see, there's no more PPP loans coming. Maybe they're going to refund it more, but I don't know. It's a really interesting position that I think a lot of Californians are in now. And certainly why the market's tanked down is, California tends to lead the nation on a lot of things. And maybe it's a thing to come for the rest of the nation.
Well, I listened to Congressman Thompson's town hall last week, and I do think there is movement in Washington, and they are aware of the issues facing small business. But I think you're right. I think the small business owner, especially the gym kind of example, they have a big decision to make. The difference with respect to for Sonoma County with the orders that are coming out now, they are saying gyms can still operate if they can modify activities to quote, operate outside. So some of the Sonoma gyms, you see equipment outside, you see, like I've seen even taped areas. So people are, distanced in an outside setting on, like a bike or something. And then we also have gyms offering, like video type services. So you're seeing businesses still pivot to try to comply in a way. But, other businesses may not have outside space. So then what do? I mean, what about restaurants that don't have outside dining capabilities, right? So here in Sonoma, another example of how the community has supported it, you had the local electeds basically apportion our middle square to allow restaurants to apply to use that to have outdoor dining. So, I mean, there are some creative solutions that are being employed, but what about all the rest of the businesses out there? So it's, it's definitely a challenging time, I think, for everyone as they try to navigate this.
Well, it's interesting, right? It's the whole dialogue of, are you going to pay $50,000 a year to go to Harvard online? Right. That's this discussion out there. And I was talking to our client this morning whose children go over to the Catholic private school in Napa, and, they're going to open, quote unquote. Right. But if they go online, like, can they charge kids $20,000 a year to be online? I don't think so. Right. So
they can, and they do. And that's what we're looking at personally with my kids.
I mean, but I think at some point the patrons of these type of institutions have to say, like, am I getting the value? Is the value there? And in a quote unquote free market, at least at the small business level, I don't think it's a free market at the large business level anymore, but who will be the survivors? And I think you're hitting really the key points, Mary, and that is pivoting, right? Who's pivoting and what are the pivots and how do you pivot? I think is really where survival through this epidemic or pandemic or whatever you want to call it is going to be.
Well, and it's also like, wearing a mask, right? Like you have people who have different risk tolerances. And that's the same with business. So I'm getting the calls still with businesses who want to close. Like they're done. They're out. They want to file their papers and end it. But then you also have the businesses who are looking at pivoting their operations to continue. And then you have businesses who are just like, you know what? What are my risks with continuing to go forward, period, right? And just not even pivot to address the order. And the first round.
So what would happen? Yeah, tell us. Like, what would happen to that person?
Yeah, good. I don't know. Where's my cracked crystal ball, right?
Yeah, right. I got one too. People ask me that about investments.
How
about you in real estate, Chelsie? Do you have a crystal ball for real estate?
Share one with me.
I know, right? Like, let's find these crystal balls. But I think, because now we're at the second wave of going through this, we do have some more insight from Governor Newsom in California with respect to how the things will be enforced. And he's saying that enforcement will be targeted, whatever that means. There are going to be multi-agency strike teams, whatever that means, that will infect. Yeah, it's like, so there are, these words that are being put out there, but I think there's ambiguity as to how really, like, well, if people aren't going to be able to pay their taxes, how are you going to be able to fund these strike teams? And,
right.
What is this? How does this help California business?
Meanwhile, you're defunding the police. So who's the, like I don't get the not a lot of forethought there.
Well, and it's, we had that issue in Sonoma County where, I think it was the sheriff basically said he wasn't going to enforce the orders a while back. And then he came around and explained why, and he wanted more transparency for the people to understand why these orders had been put in place. And so I think that, the governor now is saying, hey, the state's going to work with law enforcement to try to get people to comply. But for the business owner, it's like, okay, well, what do you do? Do you comply and stay on track that way, or, continue to get your revenue by staying open? So I think if people are risk adverse, then they're going to be more on the compliance track. So, who knows?
I saw Yolo County will start, it's on the Press Democrat, Yolo County will issue fines up to $10,000 for businesses not requiring masks. And then did you guys see a couple weeks ago, Crossing the Jordan closed permanently because they didn't shut down when they were told to shut down originally. They stayed open and they got fined. And then I think basically it came down to they couldn't afford their bills, so they had to stay open to keep their revenue coming in to afford their bills. And the county fined them again, I think, and they came out, I think, 2 weeks ago, and they completely shut down. They're closed for good.
Right, and then you get into the talk about bankruptcy. So what happens to those businesses that are being fined, and how do you get, can you deal with those fines in some type of legal proceeding to protect whatever assets you have? I mean, there's some real serious things that are going to happen in the future. But for now, businesses, take a peek at the new order and see how you can pivot to survive.
It really falls along one of the narratives that I've been talking to a lot of my clients about, and that is that the first wave of this in the markets was a liquidity crisis, right? Everyone went to the door at the same time. They wanted their risk assets out. And then the Fed had to step in, put cash into the market, put cash into the system so people could get their stuff out. Well, we got through that. And then we entered this kind of what I call a reflexive bounce, or like a hopium phase of like, hey, we're going to get a vaccine. And we're still seeing that, like, hey, we're going to have a vaccine by the end of the year. Yeah, good luck with that. And so, we keep seeing stuff like that, trying to keep pushing this market, and the Fed's using their bazooka to push it up more and more. And I continue to see that narrative playing out. But now this narrative, what I call the solvency crisis, is really starting to show some teeth, right? Because if you think about it, if you shut down all the Californian businesses again, like, we are going to enter into a solvency issue, right? At some point, like, you just have to say done, out, KO, because you just can't keep your business open. And I don't know what the appetite for continuing to pump money into PPP loans and forgiving them is in this country, and especially in an election year. I mean, it's kind of these weird things. And then I noticed, I don't know if you guys caught this in the news, but they're the new stimulus 4 that's probably going to come through that will probably extend unemployment benefits and then probably some PPP loans. And they're looking at backing some municipalities. But a part of that also is paying every American $4,000 to go on a vacation.
What?
Yeah. Like, you're like, well, and I get it, right? Because they're trying to stimulate like people coming to Sonoma and buying things and going to restaurants. But hello, like, you're paying the American people to go out and spread COVID then.
What about
like,
do they even work? Like,
it's mind blowing, right? But I think that's indicative of how political this thing has become. Mm-hmm. And it's just incredibly political, and you really can't have a discussion without it. Well, like, oh, you're a Republican or you're a Democrat or you're conservative or you're liberal. And at the end of the day, it's like, no, I'm just trying to look at the common sense here.
Mm-hmm.
That's the problem, right? Is like, we can't just come at it as like somebody who's concerned and wants to find the best way about it. Like, I saw my brother shared something on Facebook yesterday, and it said, I asked the doctor how serious or how concerned I should be about coronavirus, and he looked at me and said, I don't know, I'm not a politician, how would I know? And it's true, right? Like, it's such a political game that it's like, who do you listen to now? I mean, who really do you take? Because you have these people on TV telling you to wear your masks and do this and don't do this, but then you also look at them and they're not wearing their masks and they're all shaking hands. And
hey, President Trump wore his mask for the first time in Walter Reed Hospital.
Well, and then also, like, you look at the news anchors.
Okay.
Their hair. How is their hair so perfect and done all the time? Like, you're not going to the salon? Like, it's such a hard thing to know what's up from what's down. And I feel like people already have so much mistrust within the government that I feel like this is just a dangerous game we're playing, because the more politicized that it becomes, the more and more people are less likely to comply with what needs to be done to actually get us to the next level of being beyond this.
Did you know there was actually a political party, the anti-maskers, during the Spanish flu? No. There was a political party that rallied around not wearing masks.
Did they all die afterwards?
And they all die. But it's the same thing. It's just like, come on, man. Like, let's just use some common sense here, people. And but it's like, it's weird. It's like, you can't talk about it without, oh no, it's a liberal conspiracy, and it's a balance, right? It's like, yeah, if you have a compromised immune system, you need to be careful. If you live with someone with a compromised immune system, you need to be careful, because you're going to bring it home to mama and papa, right? And I think that's what we're seeing now. As you saw everyone go out for Memorial Day. Is it? Yeah, Memorial. No. Right. Yes.
Had Memorial Day and 4th of
Memorial Day, then July 4th, and then they brought it home. And so now the average age of person with COVID is 31 years old. Well, and then that's going to go up because they're bringing it home. And I think that's the big issue. And the reality is, you see a lot of the cases, they're not coming from the gyms. They're not coming from the small businesses taking precautions. They're coming from family get-togethers.
And like I told you last week, I mean, I've been spending time with my family, but I still go out and wear my masks when I'm in the store and stuff. And none of us have shown any symptoms of being sick or anything. And if we were, showing signs or symptoms of being sick, I would definitely avoid them and stay away. But I don't know. I feel like I'm kind of getting tired of it too, but I am still taking the precautions to protect other people. But I guess maybe I'm guilty of being like not very responsible. I'm just...
Chelsie, you're living in the state of Jefferson at the moment, so it's understood.
I don't know, and I feel like the businesses too, like, you have this pushback from people who go in like, I'm not wearing a mask. If you make me wear a mask, then you're not going to have my business. And then you have the people who are like, well, if you don't enforce them wearing a mask, then I'm not going to come into your business. It's like, I feel like businesses can't win and people can't win, and I don't know.
Well, and there's that confrontation that, you maybe don't want to have between the employee and the customer, right? And it's like, there have been news stories about people getting so heated about not wearing a mask, right? So it's like, how do you enforce all this safely while promulgating, real information? So, you know, it's just, yeah, it's a real tough issue.
Who wants to round it out?
So Mary, I'm a small business that say I'm fortunate enough in a business where I can engage my clients and not meet in person. But maybe I'm not. What's your recommendation? What do you think? How would you coach me to get through that process?
Yeah, it's a hard thing, and without giving specific advice, I mean, I'd say as long as you're staying within the mandates, look at the essential, non-essential divide and try to continue to operate under them. If you're going to be trying to minimize your risk, then I think that's the sage way to go through this. And, you know, reach out to your advisors.
I always like to tell people, stay vanilla, live in vanilla, right? Like I don't know where this is headed, but if you stay with the herd, you're not going to get whacked. It's the minute you get outside the herd and take a stand, you better be careful, because it might really become something positive and you might become a leader. But there's a lot of history of people thinking they were leaders who got whacked. So you got to decide if you're willing to die on that hill.
Well, yeah, like the vanilla or speeding, right? Like if you're driving up I-5, stay with the pack, right? Don't be that car. Don't be the little, you know, red Mustang that drives forward. So
it's always the red Mustang.
Always.
Drivers are dangerous.
Especially on I-5, man. It's easy to put the pedal down on that one.
For sure.
Anyway, thank you, everybody. We hope you have a great week. Good luck with the new closures. We'd love to hear from you. Love to know what you're doing in town to keep things open, afloat, and how you're pivoting. And we'll see you next week.